So thank you, everybody. Welcome back, this time to the Reuben Rose Competition Awards event. This competition has a long history. It was established to commemorate the memory of one of our founders, Reuben Rose, after he passed away in 1989. So tonight we are celebrating the winners of the 34th annual competition, which was held in 2023. Once again, since the meeting is virtual, the certificates and prizes have been sent in advance. And since not all our winners or guests here tonight are members who know what our certificates look like, and perhaps they weren't all here to see the certificate for the Bar Sagi Prize, I will once again show you what our certificates look like. Okay, that is the first prize certificate. This is an example of the honorary mention. Okay. And I'd like to thank, first of all, this year's judges, Iris Dan, last year's first prize winner, who regretfully said she could not be with us tonight. David Silverman, last year's second prize winner. And Yvonne Outman O'Connor from Ireland, this year's overseas judge, with special thanks to Yvonne for taking over at short notice when the previous judge, Nancy Schifrin of the USA, was unexpectedly prevented from continuing to judge near the end of the judging period. I'm happy to be able to say that Nancy has agreed to be our overseas judge for the 2024 competition instead. Judging a competition that receives several hundred entries is a lot of work, and we're so grateful to all of them for finding the time and the energy to be our judges. So again, please everybody, let us, with a show of hands, show our appreciation to our three judges. Okay. And now a special thanks, as usual, to Mark Levinson, the long-term administrator of this competition. Okay. I'm constantly awed by Mark's expertise and experience. Okay. The smooth running of the competition and its success is in large measure due to him. Okay. So, as we did, a round of applause for Mark, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to him. I'm sure he has some comments for us, as do the judges. And at least from what I saw before the meeting started, all of our prize winners and most of our honorable mention winners were able to be here, are able to be here and read their poems. And thank you also to the three poets who so willingly agreed to proxy read for those who couldn't make it. Okay, again, I have the text of the poems and I'll screen share them as each poet reads. And now, Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Judy. And I'll add my thanks to the judges, Iris Dunn and David Silverman and Yvonne O'Connor. Also, Nancy Schifrin, although trouble with her internet link prevented her from finishing the job. But I'd like to emphasize that it's not as if some poems were judged by Nancy and then the rest were judged by Yvonne as a replacement. We went back to square one with Yvonne and she judged all the poems. We expect Nancy to be back next year as a judge. She is making progress with her internet connection. And despite all its glitches, the internet is a wonderful thing, and Reuben Rose would have loved it. Reuben was delighted with the international reach of Voices Israel, even though for him it depended on trips to the post office with the output of his manual typewriter. And when he wasn't dealing with poetry, he wasn't shy about mailing his opinions to influential people either. This year, the entries to the competition were down in quantity, but there were still plenty of good poems for the judges to choose from. As usual, they weren't always in perfect agreement, but I believe we can be proud of all their choices. And I'm sure you'd like to hear from the judges themselves, so I will ask David Silverman to speak first, all right?
Thanks, Mark, and thank you for everything you did. I couldn't have, none of the judges could have gotten the work done without all the hard work, much more than us, that you put in. So thank you. I want to thank Voices in general for choosing me to serve as one of the judges for this year's contest. This is the second time that I've been a judge, and the only thing I liked less this time than last time was there were about 50% less poems, and it's really a joy to be able to read a huge batch of work about by writers whose poems are generally informed by their living in Israel or their connection to Israel, and it really was enjoyable this time. As I say, only less enjoyable because there was less work to read. I also take this as a very serious responsibility. It's not just an honor. None of us do this for fame and fortune, and to expose yourself to criticism and rejection is not an easy thing to do. And so I really want to congratulate not only the winners, but everybody who sent in their work to participate in the competition. And I think we all are feeling, especially at this time when words can seem futile, that maybe we're wasting our time when we're writing. Maybe we've seen this famous statement by Seamus Heaney, who wrote, "No lyric ever sank," and it's true, of course, but I think we can also take solace in the words of Salman Rushdie, who, when they asked him about this statement, responded by saying that writers can still sing the truth and name the lies. And so I take some solace in that, and I hope my writing since October 7th has been not very good. I haven't really produced anything that I'm proud of or would be willing to share in a competition like this, but I'm still trying to write, and I hope all of you can find some solace in writing as well. With that, I'll give the floor back to the next person.
Thank you, David. And the next person is Yvonne Altman, who I believe is here, right?
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Hello, dear friends and poets. It's a great honor to be here with you this evening, and to hear the younger poets reading earlier on was greatly heartening. Thank you. My thanks to Voices President Judy Coren and the Reuben Rose Administrator Mark Levinson for their comments and all the hard work they've put into the Reuben Rose Poetry Competition. I was deeply honored to be asked to step in as this year's international judge for such a prestigious competition as the annual Reuben Rose Poetry Prize. I knew it might take some time to sift through the many entries, but I had no idea how immensely pleasurable that work would be on so many levels. Each poem had some merit, and each one was read more than once, some many more times. Oh, the places they brought me to, the range of emotion and imagery, the originality of style and thought-provoking ideas were striking. It was difficult to make a selection of top choices, but in the end, it was down to the poems which resonated with me personally, I suppose. Whether it was the use of language, a mood, or an image which stuck with me and wouldn't let me go. My congratulations to all the poets who went to the competition for sharing the fruits of your creativity and craft with us, and for keeping the standard of poetry high. Each poem was a gift, something to be treasured in these difficult times. Special congratulations to those whose poems received an honorable mention, and to Dinah Yehuda for her striking poem, Sabras, proudly proclaiming our sharp spines and prickly scales, which won first prize. We are the beautiful truth, and that has its sweetness too. Memorable lines. Judy Coren, who came second with The Creator of Memories, a poem ruminating on the childhood memory of watching a potter intensely at work. She says, perhaps his pots and vases were his chart for sailing through modernity's dark strait. And to Michelle Malice, whose powerful poem, On Love, won third place with its intriguing use of language and imagery. I look forward to hearing you all read your poems in your own voice. My thanks and gratitude to all the organisers for the privilege of judging the competition this year. May the Reuben Rose Poetry Awards go from strength to strength, and may the poems give us shelter in uncertain times.
Mark,
Judy,
Mark, unmute yourself. You're muted.
I'm sorry. I'll go back on that then. Thank you, Yvonne. Iris Dunn is our third judge, but she can't be here. So I'm going to read off what she sent in. And this is what she says. If reading is a great pleasure, judging is a daunting one. To what extent is a judge allowed to indulge in their own taste? Are there any applicable criteria? What I was looking for was novelty of vision and freshness of imagery. What impressed me in the three winning poems, so different in content and style, was their luminosity, almost transparency. Sometimes they had a sibylline quality, which I rediscovered upon rereading. A few words about each of them. First prize, Dina Yehuda Sabras. In her poem Sabras, Dina Yehuda contradicts the well-loved cliche of the Israeli with a tender heart under a prickly exterior. We have grown arid hearts, she writes, or at least this is how it feels after the repeated blows to our hopes and certainties. She also contradicts the romantic tenet contained in Keats' line, beauty is truth, truth beauty. We have to acknowledge that we are the unbeautiful truth and build our lives on this realization. Second prize, Judy Coren, creator of Memories. Judy Coren's Potter reminded me of a vision of God creating the world. What the potter created was, in fact, innocuous escapist kitsch to be sold to tourists. But what is important here is that it stemmed from a vision of the perfect world, of life as it should have been. Although she is able now to consider this with gentle irony, the nostalgia of a traditional way of life, moving predictably, unthreatened by sudden change, is still there. And the third prize, Michelle Malice on Love, a modern song of songs. Michelle Malice's On Love pushes language to new territory, while her imagery returns to the archaeological past. Memory can either be a search in blinding desert dust or acknowledgement of what is found in blinding desert light. An untranslatable text in cuneiform, whose words are now untranslatable, but which pierces the hand touching it with deep emotion. I would like to thank all the participants in the contest, says Iris, this is still Iris, for having afforded me the privilege to read their poems. That's from Iris, and thanks to her. And now for the poems themselves. I understand most of the poets are here, and we have proxy readers for those who aren't. So can we start with Dina Yehuda, the first prize winner?
Yes, just hold on a second, because I am trying my best to screen share this when the fact that I am screen sharing is blocking the fine. It's
Yeah, it's
blocking
fine
the
now.
bits that I have to show. So here we are. Now I'm screen sharing. I hope everyone can see.
Thank you. I was so moved and really shocked and stunned, surprised to win first prize, and just shows that really if I could do it, any of you could do it as well. Thank you so much. This is called Sabras. No soft, shiny leaves for us. Proud of our sharp spines and prickly scales, hardened by drought, we hoard the rain. Not popular like roses, not expecting to be loved for our soft, fragile beauty. We have grown arid hearts, have taken the desert into our stony skin, its versatile wisdom, each striving grain of sand. Truth is not beauty, nor beauty truth. We are the unbeautiful truth, and that has its sweetness too.
Thank you, Dina. And the second prize is the Creator of Memories. That's Judy Coran.
And I have to say that if Dina was surprised that she won first prize, I was not, but I was terribly surprised that I won second prize. Especially since, as you can see, this is a formal, metrical, rhyming poem, and they are not in favor at the moment. I would just like to say, I don't think I said it when I submitted the poem, but I was here trying out the something that Derek Mann, the great Irish neo-formalist poet, does a lot, which was to write stanzas which each have a unique rhyme scheme. No one stanza has the same rhyme scheme as any of the others. So, the Creator of Memories. The potter's wheel, spinning hypnotically, created jars, plates, vases, figurines, on which he'd paint idyllic village scenes or white-sailed fishing boats on a blue sea, or fantasies. The sea outside was green or stormy grey, life as it should have been. Although he never talked to a child like me, I'd watch him work for hours through the pain, immersed in counterfeiting cobbled lanes, vistas of bays, azalea-shaded walls, images from the 19th century of life becalmed without the sudden squalls. He didn't make mere tourist souvenirs or pretty ornaments to set on shelves. His strategy went deeper, to create within their minds a story to relate to others and especially to themselves that would survive the tempests of the years. Was he happy, spinning his fairy tales of shaded alleys, narrow carless streets, and quiet fishing harbors filled with sails, selling illusions, dreams as memories of paradise in timeless, slow retreats, a 2-week refuge from realities? And was his object only to create in others memories of such a life? Perhaps his pots and vases were his chart for sailing through modernity's dark strait. Perhaps he dreamt of living free from strife. Perhaps he held that vision in his heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. I noticed you said vases. I had expected our Irish friend also to say vases, but she said vases.
Well, then
Third
I upheld
prize.
the British accent, didn't I?
Yes, yes. Michelle Mallis on love. Michelle is here, right?
Yes.
No, she said
Hello.
she is here. Oh, great, you are here.
Yes, hello.
Hello.
First of all, I'd like to thank you all for having me here. It's been a huge honor and very glad to have the chance to read this. Like a kick, like a knife, like a fist vector on its way to the face. The turn of your head when someone speaks your name, the turn of your phrase when you answer. My darling touches speeches like guitar strings. My darling holds books like sheets. Like a street cat shakes its knowing shoulders. Understanding is the gift of prophets, and I do not possess it. But what comes from one person always lands on the tongue of another. And yours is a pomegranate syrup voice. The taste of ash like boysenberry stains the hands. The viscous thought that drips like dates, that stains like beets and stays to claim its land on foreign ground where once Ashurbanipal's reign declared him last great king, and then he fell, and now we stand with thoughts of greatness which began not out of regal passion, but a pair of hands whose fingertips do read the markings in the clay that say, "You sit now where your honey grows on trees, and people taste so sweet as rum, and days do pass without return, but think of it no longer. I do not. I've long forgone the past that reeks of others, and I seek now not what I can yet seek out in blinding desert dust, but what I found in blinding desert light. I count my goods and count you out among the rediscovered texts of ancient Nineveh, now Iraq, now untranslatable but deeply felt by those who touch the cuneiform by hand and hear the horses neigh their sadness when their Lord commands the fall where a great city stands."
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
you.
So now we come to the honorable mentions, which are in random order. One of our honorable mentions is about quantums. I think that because thanks to quantums, we know that there is such a thing as random order. As the poems are presented here, the first one is Diane Ray's poem, Casabianca Mikva Speaks.
Shalom, and thank you, Reuben Rose, for this honor. I have invited some non-Jews to this event, and so I would like to define some words that might be unfamiliar to some people that are in the poem, words that are in the poem, not people. Mikveh, which is a Jewish ritual bath. Tevila, which is full immersion in a mikveh. Shem Tov, which is someone's good name. Shalom, which is peace. And caponetta alla Judia. Caponetta alla Judio is the most delicious eggplant dish. How do I know that? Because I had some. Here is a remarkable cookbook that my husband and I found after our trip to Sicily last year. And the Jews in Sicily introduced eggplant to Italian cuisine. One more word, hypogeum, which is an underground chamber. Casabianca Mikva Speaks. Giudecca, Ortigia, Syracusa, Sicilia. In my cloverleaf of pools, my people purified. Tevila cached deeply for 900 years. They made me before setting one stone of synagogue. I was carved into quietude 60 feet down. Under rippling arches in limestone, Tevila flowed. Ironmongers, shippers, how my people prospered, dipped in my quiet, my lamplit hypogeum. They lived set apart, yellow-belted and turbaned. Silk reelers, doctors, how my people prospered. 12 years, 12 Torahs, paraded to King Martin. They were called the King's Jews, yellow-belted, turbaned. Next year's parade plan, Torah cases, empty. 12 years, 12 Torahs in homage, enough. A converso-worn king, the Jews' portent, flooding peril. For planned sham obeisance before a Christian king, but by legend, Elijah in a dream forewarned. Sammy, converso rat, lost all claim to Shem Tov. Torahs were rushed back in casings, Shalom saved. Since Elijah had warned in a dream, Sammy foiled, but nothing would foil import of inquisition. Nostalgia for 12 Torahs slipped back in casings. My Jews tasted freedom in the first blush of Renaissance. Inquisition foiled open living Jewishly, Jews living. A just viceroy gutted wild anti-Jewish claims. Eggplant wed to olive oil, caponetta alla Judia. Ironmongers to merchants on the winds to Levant. A viceroy Herculean raised a case for reprieve, but expulsion it was, or conversion, or death. Shipbuilding to trading on the winds to Levant. They tucked me in blankets of earth before leaving. For expulsion it was for them, conversion, or death. The Bianca conversos upstairs sang me lullabies. In my clover leaf unearthed, my living waters flow. And the note at the bottom reads, after 500 years, the mikvah's 5 pools were unburied, still pristine. How they were unburied? An architect was remodeling, making into a hotel, the old house upstairs, and he saw an arch to nowhere that was hidden, and underneath it, he dug and he uncovered the mikvah. It took truckloads in the late 20th century to unbury the mikvah, 2 tons of earth to conceal it. How did people in the late 1400s accomplish that on the cusp of the Inquisition? I would love to know.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for the poem and thanks for the story. Now, is Elisa Subin here or a proxy reader for her?
I think Elisa was here before.
I don't see her on the list of participants.
Mhm. She did say she would be here. She didn't ask for a proxy reader.
Mm-hmm. Well, suppose we skip her and see if she shows up later,
Okay, and
or
if
else
she,
I could just read. I could proxy read if that's preferable. I don't know which.
why don't you proxy read? Because it's going to be complicated to start zipping back and forth.
Okay. So this is ultimately, it wasn't the paint color that did us in. I remember picking at the grass cloth paper covering the walls in my parents' dining room. Boredom, combined with an early distaste for wallpaper. You'd told me about your parents' purple velvet walls, and I figured you would understand. We married young and painted our walls white, cream, ivory, eggshell. I don't remember. I read that there are more than 150 shades of white. In the aisles of the home improvement store, we pretend argued over the virtues of whisper white versus cotton ball versus Casper white. In the end, we had to admit it would make absolutely no difference.
Thanks.
And next comes Helen Barlev, who does have a proxy reader. That's Wendy Bloomfield.
Wendy? I did see Wendy earlier.
I'm here.
Oh,
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, yeah. I think Judy gave me this poem to read because I'm always writing about bomb shelters myself, but not the beautiful ones that Helen describes, but the horrible ones that I've never forgotten the smell of from the Blitz when I was a baby. Okay, so I'll read this one by Helen. I don't like this room, though I've beautified it with paintings and purples, and moved my bed into it, and lit lavender incense, added an amethyst for protection. It is my studio, where computer and treadmill reside, and on the desk, drawing paraphernalia and a painting in progress, where creativity should be, buzzing around like electricity, and yet, this is not my bedroom, where grapevines and pomegranates obliterate the border, and each morning the rising sun announces the time, and I awake with a smile for the tranquility of it. Now I wait in this shelter for the war to end.
Thank you, Wendy. And thank you to Helen.
Thank you indeed. Now, our next poet is also being represented by a proxy reader. Pesach Rotem is bold enough to read Quantum Entanglement.
Entanglement by Mark G. Hammershik. Where does light end? Where does it start? Why does the smell of coffee transport me to infinity? Gravitons, photons, quanta unleashed into the all. How I wish I were a photon, massless with no electric charge, the basic stable element of us, as it hurtles along at 186,000 miles per second, and I can't find my car keys in the dark. Yet the light is still there, flowing strings of quantum entanglement, that bizarre, counterintuitive phenomenon that explains how two subatomic particles can be intimately linked to each other, even if separated by billions of light years of space in the gloaming, separating time and space. Kind of like your eyes, depthless, cradled in transverse wavelengths into points oscillating at right angles to the direction of their advance, entangled strands of strawberry hair. And as the sun hits, those eyes explode, supernova, Big Bang residue. Suddenly, we know what heaven is. And in that knowledge, our hearts converge, connect, and coagulate. And the light just is, as it always was, and will forever be.
Thank you, Pesach.
My pleasure.
Is Judy Eisenberg here?
No, Mark, I'm reading for her.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, I had a note of that. Donna Bechar is reading for Judy Eisenberg.
The Drummer by Judy Eisenberg. An old building in Jerusalem, the room cramped and difficult to navigate. Some sit around a table. I perch on a plastic chair. Conversations continue as he starts to gently tap. His eyes, twin entrances to a dark cave where his ancestors dwell. A liquid core, a well of unbearable knowledge. Gazing too long or too hard, my soul is slowly reeled into its ancient depths. His hands seek the drums like hungry fledglings, smoothing the surface as if remembering a familiar landscape. Fingers feeling the sound in each area to locate the sweet spots. His hands turn and twist, flexible as a pair of acrobats. My heart pounds to his insistent pulse, and then he starts to sing. The anguish of his forebears forces its way out in a scalding melody. Instinctively, his eyes close. Searing, supplicating sentences produce a turbulent power. Louder and louder, the roaring river runs, scooping up my soul like a glistening fish. My heart rotates in its socket, squeezed until silvery drops emerge. Finally, the hungry birds are satisfied. Their fluttering subsides. The drumming slows down. The song is finished. His eyes open, but the cave remains shut. His hands relinquish the drums, and they resume the form of upturned wooden bookcases. Moving to the table, he clambers on to the chair by his father, anxious for his fair share of grape juice and as much cake as his brother.
Thank you, Donna. Now, I think that for the rest of the poems, I say this with my fingers crossed, I think all the original poets are here. Ilana Wolf has an honorable mention with Catalytic. Ilana? Ilana was here. I know she's on the list, yes. Are you muted, Ilana? Yes, she's muted. Can anyone see
Now
her?
I'm unmuted.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I was just moving to a place with better lighting.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't see the screen where I was. Okay, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for your beautiful words, and thank you to the judges for the honorable mention. So this poem, Catalytic, revolves on the much interpreted incident of the deaths of Nadav and Avihu on the day of the consecration of the Mishkan, which is related in the very briefest of terms in Vayikra, in Leviticus 10, 1 and 2. And this is my spin on it. Catalytic. When I weary of being woman, I think of the golden cherubs on the lid of the holy ark, their ever touching wings above their faces and the space between. How in a single instance, fire issued swiftly from that space, arrowed along the tent of meeting, entered the priestly nostrils of Aaron's sons, Nadav and Avihu, and burned their souls for offering alien incense. I try to imagine the angle of that fire as it issued, how it streamed, then struck. I focus on the cherubs' wingtips, where they join. They're made that way. When I weary of being woman, I think of that gripping center point, the catalytic effect of being thus charged and unremitting.
Thank you, Ilana.
Thank you, Mark.
Next among our honorable mentions is Esther B. Lipton. The Wish.
The Wish. The Wish. The little old lady with white wispy hair sat on the brown faux leather chair. In the bank, the tellers were busy, dealing with Smith, Jones, and Aunt Lizzie. The queue was long, and at the front, an angry man, shouting, quite blunt, accused the teller, "It's all your fault," and threatened her with physical assault. The young girl blanched with fear. "I do hate confrontations," said the old dear. I sat down beside her and we started to chat. Nothing important, just about this and that. She liked my hat, a charity buy. I envied her real leather bag, I won't deny. She lived alone, her daughter not far, with 5 children, no husband, no car. "I don't see them often," she sighed. Likewise, I said, and inwardly cried. By way of comfort, but not the whole truth, I told her my sole contact was Cousin Ruth, and that dementia lurked within her head, so knew not if it was time for tea or bed. We agreed that the joy of growing old is marred by the loss of friends and family fold, by loneliness, poor sight, and poverty. In our goodbyes, she said, "You do me a favor if ever you became my good neighbor." Now, 4 years on, it has come to be. We live at Happy Hospice, the one by the sea. I'm in room 22 and she's room 23.
Thank you, Esther. Our next honorable mention, The Light You Wear, is by Adam Paul Davis. Adam?
Yes, thank you so much for the honor. The light you wear. I know all the kinds of lights acquainted with your face, every wave, every shade of spectrum that it basks in, like rails of ochre sunrise, molten silver moonbeams, amber bath of midnight fridge, flickering blue smartphone screens. I watch them weave their latitudes that ply the softness of your skin, thread their shadowed mesh between your neck and forehead. Even photon tribes I've never seen embrace you, I still imagine them. I can shut my eyes and map the yarns of their embroidery. Platoons of airport tarmac lights, nearly blinding nightclub strobes, brazen stadium discharge lamps, spectral jellyfish tank glow. And when it comes to darkness, there only really is one kind. I've also seen it flood your cheeks and turn the shine to ash. Then I wonder just how long I have to wait before I can again behold those lumens, the brilliance that I miss.
Lovely.
Thank you very much. Wendy Dickstein is up next with Eggs and Onions. Is Wendy here?
Yes.
Good.
Every Shabbos, Hashi plunged the knife into an onion, crisscrossed with a surgeon's skill, till chunks, like tiny stars, tumbled into the crystal bowl. Chopped eggs, salt, a splash of oil. He passed the bowl to Gertie, his woman of valor, blessed the wine, the braided loaf. Then the holy meal began with eggs and onions. Hashi, the patriarch, had no patience for fidgeting grandchildren at the Shabbos table. He would roar at them. They'd quail, then painful silence. Interned as an enemy alien, yet 50 years later, every landsman recalled his clout, his charity. On the high holidays, his voice would soar as he stood before God, praying with a broken heart. Learned in the ways of Torah, he should have been a teacher, but refused to flatter ignorant parents or coddle their kids. Instead, he opened a business, Do All Travel, yearning to return to a place no longer his. Once, walking on 18th Avenue, we passed 3 black teens who jeered at him. I can't help it, I hate them, he confessed. When we got home, he put on an apron and scrambled me some eggs. I couldn't believe such kindness. Hashi's long gone. Each Shabbos, I crisscross my onion and think of him. When the grandchildren visit, they ask for eggs without the onions. For them, onions, like memories, are too sharp.
Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you.
Coming up is Reuben Goldfarb. I'll mention that when I give the poems to the judges, I mix them all up so that the same poet's poems, if he submitted more than one, if there are 3 or 6, then they're never adjacent, because I don't want the judges to say, oh, here's another one by the same person. But Reuben fooled us. He submitted several poems, all of which were "this poem is" poems. So of those poems, the judges liked best the one that's called "This Poem is Innocent." So we'll hear it now.
Thank you, Mark. This poem is innocent. This poem is innocent. It took no captives, fought no wars, saved no lives, ate no corn, bought no sugar, felled no trees, sick no dogs on anyone as innocent as it. It has no gender, wrote itself, lost no mules, explored no caverns, sold no birthright, nor had any children, resembled no one, forgot its name, lost its heritage, sought redemption, neither succeeded nor failed.
Thank you, Reuben. And
Thank you.
the other Reuben who's present here, Reuben Rose, used to end all poetry meetings by saying, "Our revels now are ended," but our revels are not ended. Only this part of the evening is ended. Thanks to all the poets and thanks to the listeners, and good luck to all those who will enter next year's competition when we will have a new panel of judges. And I'll return the floor to Judy Corin.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your great comparing of the event. And I have to say that I really enjoyed sitting and listening to all the poems. And thank you once again to all our winners, to our members, to our guests for such an enjoyable ceremony. And I'm perhaps awed is not the word, but I am overjoyed every year to see that we have people coming in from all over. I think the furthest away this year is Alaska, but we also have people from Canada, of course, from the rest of the, from the US, from the UK. And of course, half of us at least are from Israel, but it's so nice to have something that we can feel is truly international. It's becoming a Voices tradition to end our national events with an open mic reading, and we have 8 or 9 people who have offered to entertain us with a poem each. So I would like to now formally declare the official part of the Reuben Rose Awards event over, but I will leave the recording on for the open mic, and I will just call on everybody in the order in which I've listed them, which was approximately the order in which they registered. So first of all, I'm going to call on Donna Bechal. I think you wanted to read Spring Breeze, right?
Yes. Hopefully our spring will bring more of what my poem talks about and not what we had last night.
Mm-hmm.
Spring brings them back again, those sunburst, yellow-masked, yellow-beaked, yellow-legged gossipers, those cabaret chanteurs and lyrical lyricists, my morning song musicians, their melodic minor exhortations, a rich repertoire of vainglorious vocabulary. Outside my pantry window, the air conditioner is stage and soapbox, as there's always a proclaimer, always a protagonist, pining, commanding, instructing, beseeching, wooing in deft monologues and zealot repartee. I am their silent and invisible audience, eavesdropping on their delirious dramas, delighting in their beck and call.
Lovely. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Judy.
I apologize to everybody that I don't screen share these because I just don't have the poems. Every poet comes with their own poem. So now I'd like to call on Esther Bellot. I think you wanted to read Lost Senses, Esther.
Yes. It's very short. It was written very quickly, but it was very appropriate. Lost senses. In biblical land, blood replaced the taste of wine. Flowers no longer fill nostrils. Lost toes no longer warm a loved one's cold feet. Sight and sound are shattered as their world fades to black.
Thank you. Great. Okay, next we have Reuben Goldfarb. Reuben, you listed 2 poems for me, so which one would you like to read? One was My Platoon, the other was Red Bead. Reuben?
What was I hear? Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Sure.
I'm not really prepared to read either one.
Your choice.
Red Bead was one, and the other one was?
My Platoon.
My Platoon. Oh. Tell you what, Judy, I'm not prepared, and I don't want to take people's time up. If I forgot there was another option or two. So let's just go on with whoever.
Okay, if would you like me to call you again at the end, and meanwhile you'll have found the poem?
Yeah, I'll poke around, see if I can find one of them.
Okay, so meanwhile we'll go on, and your turn will come again at the end.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so the next one is actually me, and I have the name of a poem down that I told myself I would read, but I'm going to exercise my privilege of being able to change my mind at the last moment. I don't know whether it's you would call it a woman's privilege or a organizer's privilege, but anyway, I am going to read a poem called Athlete Then and Now. And this is about a place that I think most of us know, the site of a ruined Crusader fortress on the peninsula at Athlete, which is today part of an Israeli army base off limits to civilians. Athlete then and now. Walk then along the beach, but not too far. You cannot go right up to the peninsula where stand ruins of the Crusader fort that fell so many centuries ago. Now, as it was before, the way is barred, barriers on the road and on the sand. The keep, a phoenix re-arisen in flame, is feathered with hidden antennae, radio transmitters, satellite links. 100 eyes, unseen, watch the advance of friend and foe. Which are you, can they tell? A warning sign ensures you cannot claim you came by chance, you did not understand. Invaders from the sea shall not surprise them here, never again. Turn back, stranger. This place serves only war. It always did. You cannot break the spell. Stroll back the way you came, along the shore. Glance at the first faint star, hear a far jackal's cry. Gaze at the sunset, vivid still, against the sky. Thank you. Okay, and afterwards we have a new member, Pessy Krause, who asked to read Sudden Changes. Pessy, are you here? I didn't actually see her in the list before. Pessy? No, I don't think she is. I don't see her. Okay, so let's go on. Esther Lipton, you didn't give me the name of a poem, but you said you would like to read. Esther, you're muted.
Yes, I'll find you for my book. Cry of a pebble, cry of a pebble. From the pebble shore, amid trillions of formless stones, colours within colours, 1,000 shades, some sparkle as stars in a desert sky, in a desert night. Others are dreary, sad as grey slate, carved through eons of crushing rocks, boulders brought small into smithereens, battered by storms, wind, water, and weakness. I select a spheroid, smooth, baby pink, unique, and on it etch my name and my year of birth. Then, with a mighty hand, fling it far, far into the heaving waves of an angry sea, to travel to an unplanned land, to exist without knowing, to survive without time limit, to be cast upon a distant shore, ignored, unloved for 1,000,000 years or more.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you. Interesting. Very enjoyable. Okay, now we come to Susan Orsberg. Susan, you wanted to read.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Judy. This poem is called Death and Life and was written last October, which becomes evident. I have seen death and life in that room, screams heralded bad news, Parents distraught with the death of a beloved son, a border policeman, missing, then found dead in Be'eri, home of so many slaughtered on that blighted Simchat Torah. And as your butchered body was laid in the ground in a military ceremony, gunshots sounded, whilst elsewhere a different sound, the newborn cry of a baby boy, nephew to you, a new grandchild to bring comfort and joy. Today, 10 days after these events, I entered that room again, and a little life, lovingly cradled in his grandma's arms, restored hope and a delicate balance between mourning death and life going on, the brave man and perfect baby Eliron.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you. Okay, so the next person on my list is Helen Sarid, but I don't see her here. So Helen, you're not here, right? Well, that's a silly question, isn't it? Helen? No, she's not with us. Okay, and lastly, David Silverman, who was here with us, but I don't see him either. I think people are telling us that it is time to end this meeting.
Time for Reuben Goldfarb.
Time for Reuben Goldfarb. Reuben, did you find the poem you wanted to read?
I did, Judy.
Great, then you will be our finale.
That's right. So I'll say one word about the poem. It's called Red Bead. It was inspired by an archaeological discovery in Jerusalem, which is described in the poem. I have an epigraph from the book of Exodus, and they set in the breastplate 4 rows of stones. First row, carnelian, emerald, topaz. In Jerusalem, 7 millennia ago, long before the city had acquired its name, there was a precious bead made of a gemstone, carnelian, shaped by a craftsman, carved, drilled, polished for a woman's necklace to adorn her bosom and throat, to decorate her mortal body, a treasured object, one that has long lain beside her bones. Today, chipped and scarred, but still intact and deep red to its core, balanced between the thumb and forefinger of an archaeologist, it's conveyed by a high-resolution photograph taken by the woman who led the dig, flashed through fiber optic cable to me, and soon to rest on a museum shelf, displayed in a secure vitrine. For how many millennia more?
Thank you, Reuben. Good question. Okay. Thank you to everyone. Thank you especially to Mark, who compared this meeting with me. I hope we've left you feeling in need of more Voices Israel activities, because as our members in Israel know, we've opened registration for the Netanya Residential 2-day workshop, which is going to be in person. So unfortunately, people who are not in Israel will not be able to join us. But it's going to be a wonderful couple of days for those of us fortunate enough to live in Israel. And I'm sorry that we won't be able to see our overseas members there, but we haven't had an in-person event for too long, so we in Israel are really excited about this one. And thank you to all of our members who have stayed here until the end, especially the young poets among us. And we look forward to hearing everybody's poems and receiving them for the Reuben Rose Competition of 2024. And meanwhile, I will now stop recording.
Not before we thank you, Judy. Thanks for your efforts and for your...
Thank you, Judy. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Judy and Mark.
Thank you. It's been a fun evening. I've really enjoyed seeing you all and hearing you all. And I now declare our meeting closed.